Welcome to Friday Facts number 421. We have optimizations, and I've optimized my mojo and got him in here at 8:30 a.m. How are we all doing?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Pretty coffeeless.
Oh god, that could be bad. All right, let's get into some optimizations because, well, I realized after seeing this and us talking in the pre-Friday Facts, we hadn't seen our seating. We hadn't seen many posts from our seating, and our seating is always a big fan of making things run as fast as possible. So of course we had to have more optimizations coming. Yeah.
You know it's you're in for a wild ride when you see the word optimization and I said popping up.
Or bug reports.
Or bug reports, yes.
Yeah. He gets into some fascinating bug reports sometimes. Okay. So, Roboport optimization by our setting. Yeah, I've profiled many save files over the years, working on Factorio, and frequently see save files where logistics and or construction bots that take up a lot of time. Nothing new, but along with robots come Roboports in large numbers. And we all have a base like this. There's...
Yep. Transcontinental bot networks everywhere.
Not even transcontinental robot networks, just having a large central network that is the size of the base, but the base keeps expanding, therefore the network keeps expanding. Not just
got to charge fast.
Not just taking the robot network out to the frontline walls for the fun of it, but an actual proper.
Very important, that is.
Oh god, that's the transcontinental network he's talking about. But an actual a typical factory with lots of robots. Yes. So robots have never been slow, but always present people and encourage to build a lot of them. Even more in the upcoming space age, we do a lot of stuff remotely. After the most recent playtesting session, the resulting save file once again showing them taking up a small but not zero amount of time, and it got me thinking about them again. Would be really nice if we didn't need to activate and have them updated all the time. Most robots don't do anything except consume power. Every so often, relative to their lifetime, they have some robots come along that need to charge or become a station, i.e. the robots need somewhere to park. But most don't do really anything except exist as an extension of the logistics network itself. So I tried an experiment. What if I just turn them off when they don't need to do anything special? Robot comes along and wants to charge. One of the other rare situations when they need to do things, we just turn them back on until it's all over. Yeah. So nice, simple answer. And they went from an average of 1 millisecond use time to 0.025 milliseconds per tick, which is
That's a lot.
Actually massive, yeah.
Yeah.
And Factorio has a lot of logic where if a machine's not in use, it just turns off. And
yeah.
Roboports never did that, but
Roboports were one of the few that didn't.
Yeah.
Do you remember the time when mining drills didn't turn off?
Oh yes, and this is why we go around and we would systematically check the outposts, and if the miners were finished, they get removed, and that's where the mod.
It's like sleeping mining drill or something. Well, there was a few of them that did it. There was Anti-Elites' optimization. He had a pack which did made them run 10 times faster but sleep for 10 times longer. And then there was another one which made them micro-sleep.
There was one that had them sleep if they couldn't output. And
yeah, it did that too, as people slowly... Admittedly, these were being discovered at the same time as people were making mods for them.
Yep, and there was another one. There was the other one that auto-deconstructed a drill but had nothing to mine. And I can't remember that one.
Auto-deconstruct?
Maybe it was just auto-deconstruct. But the important thing is, if it was marked for decon, even if there was nobody there to pick it up, it's then turned off.
It immediately turned it off.
Yeah.
Admittedly, though, the downside to auto-deconstruct is that
You'd
when...
run through a mining patch and your bots would take off.
That too, and also the game would, every 2 or 3 seconds, would just hiccup on large maps.
Yeah, the mod ended up taking up more UPS than the mining drills did.
Yeah, or auto-deconstruct was more about automatically marking mining drills for deconstruction, but at the time there was some pitfalls to it. That's changed now, I should add too.
Yeah, no,
long since been fixed.
The one I like using now, it was the same concept, except it gave you a decon planner that you just ran over the outposts, and it would mark any miners that had no ore.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And mark them for decon. It was a manual process, but that's fine. It meant if I'm going to go visit an outpost, I just mark it beforehand.
The decon planner, I think that was.
Yeah, it was something. I don't remember. There's a lot of mods over the years. All right, so that's step number one. At the same time, we have radar logic optimizations. So earlier this month, a minor feature card appeared in my to-do list with a small radar coverage area to Roboports. Normally, that would be about 5 minutes work to implement, but the card had a small stipulation attached. Do it in a way where overlapping areas don't increase the performance cost. Up until this point, radars, the entity, and the radar features built into other things like the player were very simple. Every so often, iterate around it and ask the map system to keep it revealed. This worked fine for most part because you don't typically have a lot of overlapping players and radars. Disagree, but okay. But till now we want to robots and you build in very tight clusters would do a lot of overlap to do the same logic. We set it on a register style system where anything that wants to be revealed in the area of the map simply register chunk as keep revealed by increasing the counter for every chunk of the map system. As long as the counter is larger than 0, the chunk stays visible. Things can overlap as much as they want and it simply increases the counters, which is a really simple solution.
Simple and effective.
Yeah,
it's funny. I had this recollection as well of one time playing with a setting where he was exploring the map by blueprinting down a grid of like 25 by 25 radars.
Oh, and using that to find new resource patches.
To explore. Yeah.
Yeah.
He explored it in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of
10 seconds.
It was a bunch of tightly compacted radars and substations.
An array of radars and substations.
And of course, they scan around them one chunk at a time, but they each do their own chunk. And they'll do the next chunk in the line because he added that optimization because prior to that...
He'd already done it because he's already placing the blueprint, presumably.
Prior to that, they'd overlap and they'd scan the same chunk, which meant multiple radars was actually really pointless. But he optimized it, so they did the next chunk in the queue, and then they'd go through and do all their chunks in the queue. And yes, if you stamp them down, I remember the blueprint. They only needed to do like one pass, one cycle of the radar, which is like 10 seconds or something.
And it reveals all of the possible area that they can reveal.
Yeah, I remember this blueprint. Yep. So, really simple implementation, great implementation, and it means they can cache this data. Okay, if the chunk count has a greater than 1, put an updated bucket. We loop through one bucket each tick when the counter goes back to 0 for a chunk. Remove the bucket and stop getting updated. And then this lovely animation shown at 50% speed, which is cool. And we can see that with many Roboports comes much radar coverage. Yeah. With this system, I will replace the radar entry logic and other entities' radar logic. So I use the same shared registration had a display effect on the radar entry entities, take up less update time. Combined with the Roboports providing radar coverage means you didn't need as many radars. On another playtesting save file, we had it improved the overall game performance by 3.6%, given it wasn't meant to have any measurable impact. If anything, expected added radar coverage to Roboports would make it worse. At 3.6, the overall improvement was great, so it was a success. And in 2.0, robots will have a small built-in radar chunk range of 2, which is the really important thing. It's the one we've spent probably the most time umming and ahhing about. Which means this...
Right at the end of this entire section.
Yeah.
One line that's, you're going to get radar on your Roboports now.
Oh, no. And the 2-chunk thing. The 2-chunk thing is what really matters because a Roboport has, from the center tile, where the Roboport is, well, from the edge of the Roboport, whatever, it has 25 tiles in all directions for construction range and 55 for logistics.
And 55 for...
Oh, other way around. I had it the wrong way around. I've got my red and green wires wired in backward, okay? Yeah. So 25 for logistics.
Connected to your wristwatch.
Yep, 25 for logistics and 55 for construction. So, and a chunk is guaranteed to be the chunk the radar's in doesn't the Roboport's in doesn't count. So it's from the edge of the chunk, another 64 tiles. So it means that yes, your radar coverage is always going to be more than your logistics area. Construction area.
Yeah, construction area. Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be great. It means that, yes, you're going to use way less radars, because I was actually thinking with Space Age coming out now, radars can carry wire signals.
Yes.
I actually thought we're going to end up with a lot more radars.
Yeah,
Like a lot more.
I was genuinely thinking like every ore outpost has a circuit network connection now. Radar.
Yes, it has
You
a
usually have a
circuit
radar
network
anyway.
connection. But I was now thinking, like, well, hang on. People are going to make small modular factories, and if they can put signals in and out with a radar, is a radar going to become like a power pole? Like, there's just one guaranteed in every blueprint, just so you can get signal data in and out.
I can see that happening.
I can see that happening too, right? Anybody who's played with like any sort of generic blueprints, which is really what's coming with 2.0 and Space Age with our universal modifiers and everything else when it comes to blueprints.
Yay, parametric blueprints.
Wow, I'm thinking like the city block designs. Okay,
Yeah.
they're guaranteed to come with at least a radar, if not 2 or 3, right? And they're going to be generic blueprints, and you're going to be putting a radar beside a radar all the time just because, well, this city block has a radar, and therefore the one beside it is going to have a radar, and they're just going to be there just to carry wire signals for no other reason. So, yes. Yeah, I was expecting a lot more radars, but I'm glad it has a performance saving, and I'm way more happy about having radar coverage on our roboports. That's going to be
Yeah. That means that your solar field will automatically get radar coverage too.
Yeah, I'm not really looking at my solar field, but yes, it will technically. Yeah.
I mean, now you can look at the solar field you never want to look at ever again.
Yeah, but also I think it means your frontline defenses are going to have coverage, and it's not just for the construction range. It's for the construction range and a bit.
Yeah,
Because
assuming you put roboports on your front lines, but yeah, I mean, you late game you really should.
you tend to, no matter what, and you hopefully don't have them connected to the main network, but you tend to, no matter what, and a lot of people optimize it so the Roboport coverage for the construction range just covers the very edge of the wall. So it's just got wall coverage, and therefore the robots have the most travel time. Therefore, hopefully, they arrive after all the biters are dead and do the repairs. But because the radar coverage is going to be more than that, you'll be able to see the biters as they march in. And hopefully, eventually, in Friday Facts number 422, we find out what those biters are. Hopefully.
Hopefully. One can dream.
So, lamp always on. During a resident office LAN party, we were eating in the restaurant. Kovac shared an idea, given it possible to pick RGB colors for lamps. He wanted to place an image using lamps. The only problem was, in order to power lamps, we'd need to place a substation every so often, make the image slightly ugly. At this point, he said, unless you build it on a space platform, knowing that platforms do not need electric poles. He seemed happy and excited whilst they remained calm, not knowing what would happen the next day. When the next day of playtesting arrived, he made 100 wide by 150 high blueprint containing lamps he placed on the space platform with the image converted to RGB colors of those lamps. However, one significant issue that was to solve on the space platform, it is always daytime, so lamps do not turn on.
Nice.
Yeah, funny about that. Lamps had to be connected to a circuit network and to force them on during the day. This was quickly noticed as the update time on our quickly growing save file went up too fast. I still wonder what the image was.
Because what is it? 100 by 150 lamps is a lot of circuit network.
It is a lot of network, and well, technically it's one network because I'm assuming it's all plugged in together. But it's an awful lot. It's an awful lot. Okay. Having 15,000 lamps with control behavior needs to be updated every tick was not optimal, so made lamps be possible to force on during the day with a simple button. And their control behaviors went from 3.2 to 2 down to 1.9.
Just like that.
Yeah.
You also notice in this UI, as well as the always on button, you have the color picker, which means that you can just set the color at any point in time.
Yeah, I don't remember them adding RGB.
Yeah, it was a little while ago.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I forget which one. It was one of the earlier ones. I forget which.
So, It's not.
This
Just for clarification, it's not in 1.1 because I don't build lamps.
It's not in 1.1, no.
Okay. So now we have an RGB, a packed RGB. Packed RGB is going to be a hex code, I bet.
Yeah, it'll be HTML code.
Yeah. I wonder, and now I want to know what the image was. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious too. For those curious, also it was 388.
388, where they
FF388 for RGB lamps.
RGB lamps. Okay. This minute say fell an update about 1.2 milliseconds fast. Just spent with skip having the lamps connected to the second network. However, looking at the update time of the control behaviors of the changes made, I was slightly worried why the control behavior update is still so high, so I had to identify it. So, belt reader and multi-threading control behaviors by Boss Kid. So, they made the control behavior be able to read all the belts in a chunk rather than having to wire them up in, well, all the belts.
All the belts in a line.
In a line, yeah. And it's not technically a line, but we're going to go with the word line because it's close enough.
Wibbly wobbly line.
Yeah.
Ribbon.
Yeah, I still can't think of a good word. It's pre 9 a.m. I still have an excuse for the next 8 minutes. All right, so they added the be able to read all the belts that are connected together rather than wiring them up individually. Previous one, I don't remember what it's called. But the belt reader.
Belt spam was what it was before.
Yeah.
The circuit spam, actually.
So they added that to be able to read all the contents of all the belts rather than having to wire them up individually. Okay, so the ability to read the contents of all the belts in sequence means there was the need to only one of these belts to be connected with wire, and only one control behavior needs to count the items and the transport lines themselves. Do not need to split into one tile long pieces. Eventually, by adding a belt reader, it was possible to significantly reduce the update cost of control behaviors and update the cost of transport lines by also gaining new abilities not possible before, like counting items and underground belts. Problem with the belt reader is it was easy to use. During our playtesting, it was used quite a lot, not only in space platforms, which was the intended case, but also in other places. And this is what happens when you give somebody an inch and then they go and hang themselves. Yes, too much rope was given. Okay, I can say that Harusha,
something like that.
Yeah, was the primary saboteur of our playtest. He was responsible for some of the belt reader usages that could be solved without them. I have no idea why he is reading all the contents of the belts to get how many pipes are on there, and then reading the pipes again and trying to match the pipes with the gears, because at the end of the day, you're side-loading the pipes. They could just fall on there. It doesn't matter.
So I'm figuring that there's one of maybe two things potentially going on here. The first one is that it's trying to make a circuit-controlled splitter. Is one possibility. Other possibility is, I think it was Intertooth did this years ago, where you have a base that dispatches items to destinations that demand them per craft. I can't even think of a nice way to make a base. Basically, you have a base. It has a common main bus that just takes items like a sushi belt.
And it has a sushi belt and then dumps them off where they need to go.
But instead of just having a dumb sushi belt, it actually inserts things as they're needed.
What he's doing
quantity
is he's making sure that the doesn't have too many gears on there for the amount of steel. So gears and steel don't end up flooding one side of the belt. And then for whatever reason, he's matching the pipes to the gears. And there's no reason to do the pipes to the gears because, frankly, one side of the belt is dedicated to just pipes, so who cares?
Yeah, that's the only thing is it's a cool system. I kind of like how it's been implemented, but at the same time, it's kind of like, from a practicality standpoint, you can just brute force it.
No. It would be a cooler system if he put steel on both sides of the belts and therefore lined up the amount of steel on the belt according to a ratio that matched the right amount of gears and the right amount of pipes, and used a more complicated circuit network to make sure steel could go in from either of the two sides to make sure that everything ran perfectly and to ratio, and therefore he can make the build longer, and therefore he can upgrade the assemblers next tier of assemblers and add more speed modules. Because
or you use quality modules instead of speed modules. Also, engines use two pipes.
Yeah, I know. It's more pipes to gears.
And
But
steel. It's one steel, one gear, two pipe.
and you're saying the belt's flat out being a red belt and it's full. But then there's extra steel coming back. So therefore it's not full. There's extra pipe coming back, so it's not full. So, and there's always faster belts and faster machines.
What I'm saying is that it technically is in ratio, because the gears and the steel are in ratio, proportionally there.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Head to pipe.
Whatever.
So if it was me, the way I would do it is have everything on the inside, so pipe, gears, steel, and then have the output on the far side.
Oh, okay. You're gonna just do everything on, but no.
And then you can have beacons where the center belt is.
No. Because you're taking 3 items off. They should also output onto the inside.
Okay, yep. Add and replace.
Yeah, so add and replace the exact same belt. Oh, that's what you're talking about doing. And removing the belts on the inside.
Or remove and replace. I mean, not add and replace.
Yeah, so you're going to remove everything off the red belt, the pipes, the gears, and the steel, and then output the engines to the exact same belt, and then use a smart splitter to then pull off all your engines. Although, in theory, if you count everything correctly, there's no steel and there's no gears left over, right?
If you do it right.
Yeah, if you do it right. If. I don't like the ifs. Okay, so somebody used way too many wires. That was the bottom line cause. Okay.
I feel like they didn't use enough wire.
This is why you and I don't play together often. All right. Okay. So he used the belt reader in usages that could be solved without them. There's also active provided chassis placed on Factorio that tend to a logistics robot hell, with more than 10,000 logistics robots being in the air at all times. That seems perfectly reasonable to me. I cannot push him enough for playing the games, so it was time to optimize. Optimizing code for logistics robot was for somebody else, but the belt reader and control behaviors are, however, for me to handle. The belt reader under the hood is very simple. Every tick, it sees what items are on the belt, how many of them are in each stack on the belt, and counts the total. Optimized belt readers went through a couple of iterations. One of them was trying to keep a running total of transport lines. However, it failed. The turning point for me is realizing the simple fact that a belt reader is mostly a read operation. Just reads a lot of data from memory, the contents of the belt stacks, to count items, and in the end it produces a single frame of signals that's sent to a circuit network. This structure means I should be able to do multi-threading on it, i.e. multiple belt readers computed at the same time do not interfere with each other, as they only read belt contents and their output is not used by other belt readers. A similar structure is easy to see in other places like Roboports, reading logistics network content, combinators, selector combinators, decider combinators, with the exception of the selector combinator, which could no longer use a global random generator. Which was the selector combinator? That's the new one, isn't it?
That's the new one, yeah.
So, okay, all of these were relatively easy to make multi-threaded. With the changes above, our playtest save code file could run 9.5% faster, which is just stupid.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
From Circuit Network as well, which is already very optimized.
Circuit Network is very optimized, but it still chews the UPS so quickly. Because you just do a few things, just a few tiny things, and you realize, like, okay, that's using a significant amount. All right. So a synthetic save file with 77,000 combinators interconnected with 6,000 circuit networks I was using during development was running 15 times faster, whilst keeping 100% CPU usage. Benchmark time went from 131 seconds down to 8.2 seconds. Wow.
Which is a significant increase.
Wow. And it also means
or decrease.
Also means the Doom inside Factorio, it just got one step closer to being a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to play at 60 FPS. Not Factorio, but Doom. With a GUI.
Yes. Well, you got RGB LED lights now.
Exactly. Well, they still have to be hooked into the circuit network. But the circuit network got optimized, so, yeah.
It can update 60 UPS, the circuit network.
Yeah, so failed attempt, multi-threading the electrical network update. This is one of the things I keep hearing from everyone, make the electrical network update multi-threaded. The electrical network update was also improved in Friday Facts 209, which I haven't read, but I'm pretty sure that's where they moved electrical to its own separate thread, so it's not part of the base game thread. However, it was only performed by one thread, which is often observed to be the slowest one to finish. In most cases, the game just had one huge network, so multi-threaded wouldn't make much benefit. However, with space stations, there are many large networks, different planets, so the potential is greater. As for everything that's multi-threaded, the first step is done is identifying the moving parts, how they interact with each other. All of this is required because the game needs to remain fully deterministic, or a desync would happen. At first glance, you think it should be pretty simple. Each thread works on different electrical network and so on and so forth till it's done. This, however, until you get to... this is not the case because there was one game mechanic that makes it slightly more complicated. The ability to have an entity powered by multiple electrical networks, which I use in nuclear power plants, and with the new fusion, whatever. The new nuclear power... The other... Few mojo.
The atom not splitter.
Yeah, the other nuclear network power thingy coming in the future.
The nuclear that fuses atoms instead of splitting atoms. How about that?
Sure. Or I just go with FU mojo. Okay, so definitely when those come around, we're going to have a separate network that powers just them, so it becomes the primary network. It's going to be having backup and backups with backups, to make sure that you don't run out of enough power to run your power network, to run your power network, to keep your power network running on your power network. So, so we have one of these cases where we have an oil refinery that's powered by two separate networks. One being a boiler running on nuclear fuel, of course. What else would you use for fuel? Yep.
You would use nothing. I would expect nothing less.
Yep. And of course, the other one running on solar. So, if they update the wrong order, i.e. left their network updates first, the oil refinery is run from the steam engine, the boiler would burn fuel and then soda would activate. If the right network updates first, they charge the oil refinery from the solar panels, well, then the boiler doesn't do anything, which is a problem because it needs to always be the one set way. And in theory, couldn't you just set that solar always is first? Like this network
high priority, I think.
Well, yeah, but that's on a single power network, and now we have multiple power networks. So wouldn't it just be like drain solar? If solar has no power left, then obviously whatever's left over, if it's on multiple networks, can be charged and used from other networks. Which I
guess the problem is that it can't properly determine which to use.
Well, I was thinking that would be fine at a high-end use case scenario until you end up with an oil refinery that happens to be bridging three networks. And it'd be a matter of time before somebody did that. And the game just spits chips because it's one solar network and then one from nuclear power and then one from good old steam boilers or steam engines. Yeah. So,
it's lucky the really old power switches aren't a thing anymore.
They still are.
No, I mean so there was a power switch that I had once upon a time, and it relied on steam engine. It was this balance of steam engines having water going in because they could consume water at that point in time, and water going out. And it used a shared power network, and what would happen is this pump would lose power when when the solar got too low, and that would cause it's like a flushing toilet. It would cause water to flow and be consumed, which in turn would turn on something else, which was like it would drain a tank, which would then turn on the decider combinator, which would then turn on all of the boiler pumps. Yeah, that's what it was.
Mojo built a thing to prove he could. That's
Pretty much,
what I'm
yes.
hearing. That's what I'm hearing. All connected up to a flushing toilet. Okay, so because the networks are dependent on each other, they must be updated by the same thread. Yes. I find all the edge cases like this, like Power Switch doing closing, causing multiple networks to merge. I was able to find what should a update group contain. If two electrical networks had at least one entity powered by both networks, these networks had to be in the same update group, be updated at the same thread, and these things would not happen. See, just join it all together. That's the end solution. All right, the results. This is where the idea failed completely. We can see in our playtesting style of having at least 4 large electrical networks, completely independent, since they're on different planets. However, the electrical network the electrical network update time remained the same, whilst the CPU usage went significantly up. As it turns out, the electrical network does not really do too much. It just reads two variables, does one or two additions, and goes to the next entity. If it was memory throughput limited, and by having more threads reading the data from memory, processor cannot simply read data faster. With multi-threading here, instead of having one thread wait for the memory, all the threads doing the electrical network update were waiting for memory, slowing each other. To fully reject this idea, I had to use additional profiling tools like Intel's VTune, which allowed me to give a more numeric arguments that show the electrical network is memory throughput limited. Our playtest save file had the electrical network update time improved from 0.5 milliseconds to 0.39 milliseconds, which is like a 20% increase in performance, which technically, like, we've looked at the previous ones. We had a 9%. Well, the circuit network is 10% faster, right? That's pretty impressive. The radars is like 4%, which is, again, really impressive considering how optimized Factorio is. Technically, a 20% optimization is great to go from 0.5 down to 0.39, but the CPU usage went from 0.5 to 15, which is a 300% increase in CPU usage.
It's a massive increase in CPU usage.
For a 20% increase in performance. So it means that in theory, the electrical network is going to run better. The catch is you're just going to cap out your total thermal profile for your CPU because you're now running it, at least a core, 300% harder. Which is fine for that particular core, but you have
sending your Intel to the RMA department 300% faster.
Yeah, well, at least one core.
At least one core, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, when it comes to CPUs, you're not so much limited to the number of cores anymore. You're limited to the total thermal capacity of your heatsink and whether or not you wish to live with a heater running in the same room as you are. And for a 20% increase on a very, very tiny part of Factorio, I don't think I want the room to be like 2 degrees hotter. I think I can live without that one. So that one didn't get implemented, but I guess if it's proven in the future that maybe there's some other way they could tweak it, or we end up with more planets, that maybe it can be done. Maybe they could just re-implement the code, flick a switch, so to speak.
Or have it specifically exclusively independent per planet or something. But I imagine he's already tried that.
Yeah, I don't see... They had 4 large planets, but okay, on top of that, they're going to have a certain number of space tugs. Maybe if they limit it to every planet gets the independent thread, but then everything else gets lumped together, maybe that would work, but then you're trying to half multi-thread, half single-thread things. That's going to become a mess. So
it becomes the worst of both.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be worth it unless, I don't know, we end up with Factorio 3.0 where you end up with 32 planets you need to go visit. Maybe it counts then.
Somehow optimized.
Yeah. So then we have the smart update of Worker Robots by Coverix. I noticed a problem with logistics box in our office safe. Somebody removed a cable from the automated system, adding more robots to the robots on Fagola. In a few hours, we end up with the overpopulated logistics network with 10,000 robots having nowhere to go because all the roboports were full. There is a simple answer for this. It's called nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
If you
or if you add logic to insert robots, add logic to remove robots as well.
No.
Yeah, you never need to do that.
No.
Sounds too sensible.
No. Look, if you have 10,000 Logi robots that have nowhere to live, your answer is you need to expand, you need more roboports, or you need a nuclear weapon. Because the base is going to self-repair, okay? But if you just take out like 5,000 Logibots that are just hanging around roboports that have nowhere to charge and nowhere to live, their problem's solved.
Yeah, they're no longer a problem anymore.
Yep. So
or you could have them recalled and then send them off-world to where they are useful. by
Yeah.
having a thing that pulls them out of the network.
Yeah, but that's going to take ages to pull them out of the network, whereas a nuke, it's pretty as simple as done.
I mean, yes, I'm fully aware that it is a lot quicker to just blow them up and craft more, because they only like, what, a half-second craft time?
They're super cheap. Like, when you're talking, like, I've accidentally got 10,000 of them that have nowhere to live. It's like, that sounds like your crafting speed is not your limitation. It sounds like nuclear weapons are your limitation. Okay?
Yes.
Just blow them up.
Crafting speed of nuclear weapons is a lot slower than Logibots.
Yeah, I know, but I'm only using one nuke to get rid of a lot of Logibots. So, yes.
It's a good payoff on your investment.
It is. So, as always, no one knows the problem for you. Ours first reaction was to add an alert for when the worker robots don't have any space to station, or a similar alert to have no storage space. That sounds annoying.
It is probably because it probably is annoying.
Yeah, but the underlying problem is the worker robot update is too simplistic. All the robots are iterated every tick and their update logic executed. However, the update logic is most of the time very, very simple. Like, continue moving towards target, wait in the queue to start charging. It's not a new idea to fake this movement of something whilst actually updating only once in a while. We used the chunk update planner and smoke update trick 9 years ago, so it was just a question of time until these techniques would apply to worker robots. Problem with the worker robots compared to just smoke is they have a lot of different things to do, different types of jobs, station charging. But since I was motivated to find another way to optimize the game, I sat down and I jumped right in. So the fact that there's 10,000 robots in the network has nothing to do with the rest of this paragraph. So the main part of the logic when the robots are moving, as most of the logic worked in a simple way of, are we there yet? Like children? No, move closer. Are we there yet? Yes, do the next part of the update the logic. Yep. Are we there yet, Mojo? Mojo, are we there yet?
Just a little bit.
Are we there? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So,
just a little bit further.
But now,
just 5 more minutes.
Yeah. So now we need to have more intention. Now we have to have the move intention stored in the robot and use that where we want to move somewhere. Once the move intention is known, the robot can enter a limbo, and the rendering code can use this intention to present the robot is moving smoothly all the time. It can also be used to calculate the arrival time at the destination and to know when to schedule the next update. So we have a debug visualization where the red robot is actually where the game is calculating the robot is, and the ghost robot is just, the renderer guessing where the robot should be.
Or it's where the robot is calculated to be, pre-crafted to where it should be.
It's technically a guess, because if the robot blows up between one red marker and the next red marker, then it's going to have a problem. And depending on whether they've covered it for running out of power, which I imagine they have, again...
I imagine that they've, if it takes damage, it registers an immediate update.
Possibly.
Instead of waiting the full 20 ticks.
Possibly, but we are talking about 20 ticks. So, it's happening 3 times a second. And, 3 times a second, which also means that it's happening every 20 frames of actual, frames per second, which means you're still going to see it pretty much instantly no matter what, even if they haven't added any special events.
Even if it does event on the 20 milliseconds.
Yeah.
20 frames, 20 ticks, 20 whatevers.
Even if it happens on the first tick and you don't see it until 19 ticks later, it's going to be so close to instant, it doesn't matter. I think is the bottom line. I don't know whether they'd have to run in events for everything else, because it's fairly often. It might not be perfect. The robot might jump backward, one robot length, but who cares?
You'll probably only do that in multiplayer, a worst case scenario.
Yeah. So there needs to be some limit, as the robot it can be traveling a long time, and maybe some distant robot travels into the center of our screen. We wouldn't know about it, as the physical position would be too far. We check edge of the screen for different reasons of similar kinds, like lamps making light for off-screen, for example. So there can be some leeway, because I just decided to find some hard-coded magic numbers of a maximum of 20 ticks of movement without the update, and 60 ticks of stationary robot without updates. This could probably be increased, but the practical performance game would have extremely diminishing returns at this point. So it means that the 10,000 robots that hang around the screen doing nothing are going to update once every second. The robots that are in movement will update 3 times every second. And unfortunately, they're hard-coded, which Kovac should know by now is a bad thing to do, because mods are going to end up having robots that move far too fast. far,
Mods will find a way to break.
far,
Modders
far.
will find a way to break it.
Actually, robots get faster with infinite research.
Yes.
This is already going to break in vanilla.
Maybe.
Well, when you have research like robot movement speed, 20, 25, 30, like the really stupidly high numbers, whereas a couple of million science packs, in saying that, we now have million science pack per minute bases. So a million science packs is nothing.
Yeah, true. It's a legitimate concern.
And now they're going to move 4 or 5 times the distance that they're moving in this little animated picture. That could be a real issue. Yeah. I hope
It depends on how the logic works, really.
Well, I said earlier I don't think you need the events because they're not going to move that far. But now, after hindsight and the realization that robots are going to move 4 or 5 times faster than this, and therefore 4 or 5 times,
They can potentially move faster than trains. Yes.
yeah, the distance between one red marker and the next red marker, they're going to have to put in a decent number of events for when a robot does anything other than move in a straight line.
I mean, robots pretty much only move in the straight line.
Unless they get hit by a nuclear weapon.
Or then they move in a very vaporized direction.
Well, the carcasses fall on the ground. And you want the carcass to fall, sort of like fall from the right point, not 20 milliseconds later, which could be half a screen's distance further on. Just saying.
Well, as I say, like it costs nothing to add a event that when it's hit by the ground zero blast of a nuclear weapon, you have it fall out of the sky.
You say it costs nothing. Everything costs something. All right. So the result, at the office LAN party, the overall save performance was increased by 15%, and it generally depends on the amount of robots. But with some heavy robot saves, the overall performance gain is around 10 to 25%. I call this a success. With the changes combined, we're getting into more comfortable territory where it comes to performance with bigger space age saves. Be nice to push it even a little bit further and allow players to go more crazy. We have some ideas that can help out a lot. Stay tuned and come back for the next Friday Facts, where we're definitely talking about biters, right, Mojo?
Yes, or coolant. Which we sort of expected would come this week, but apparently not. Maybe we'll never learn the rest of Fusion.
They never, ever, ever. I think the only planet was Fagola. The only planet I think was Fagola where they released the brief over details, and then they had the planet details in the next Friday Facts. The actual details.
Volcananus had that.
I thought we had a week in the middle.
No,
not Fagola. Not Fagola. The Moldy Planet. The Moldy Planet had.
Moldy Planet never really. It had a very light one.
It had an overview, and then the next Friday Facts, we covered all the tree planting and everything else. Whereas all the other ones, yeah. I thought we got a brief introduction, a sort of a very, high-level overview, and then we had another week of something else, and then we got the deeper dive.
Moldy Planet is the only one where we haven't really got a deep dive into its signature building, the bioreactor thing. But Fagola, yeah, the EM plant was on the following one.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, it wasn't. Sort of was, sort of wasn't, because it was the. What was it? It was the.
We got told about lightning.
Mining.
We got told about lightning, and then I'm sure there was another Friday Facts that covered something else, and then we went back and we got told about the trash mining, the recycling, and the special building and everything else. I don't know. There's a number of Friday Facts, but I'm not surprised we didn't get any details about coolant and any of that in this Friday Facts. Normally they're not back to back. Normally they make you, read the other chapters of the books to make sure that you stay fully abreast.
Make sure you're paying attention
of whatever's going to come out on the week after. Yeah. So, I'm definitely happy for biters. Look, don't get me wrong. I love the optimizations. The optimizations are great. I really like the fact that we're going to get radar range built in our Roboports. Because, radars is one of those things I handcrafted 50 of them. And I just carry 50 of them on me, and I probably wouldn't automate them till late game, because you just don't use them en masse until you get to solar fields.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really used them in solar fields, because I just paint down the blueprint and just hope for the best.
I'd automate them at that point because I'm delivering via train and I want them just to be there. And also
Okay.
outposting, like, by the
Yeah,
time
that
you're
consumes one.
late game, you're doing outposts every now and then, and you're probably doing them in bulk, and you're probably having all the deliveries, all the components come in via train. So I'll automate radars at that point. But actually, I automate radars at the point I start making artillery shells. That's really the bottom line.
It's very important at that point.
Well, the automated...
Admittedly, I automate them earlier just because I have automated outpost delivery, and it's usually a component of it.
Well, I automate them with artillery because they're required for the artillery shell, and that's the point. Like, they're already automated. Fine, I'll bulk make them, because that's also the point where I'm probably bulk making satellites for rocket launches. So, and I'll just leech off one of those two systems to make sure I have some available in the network for outposting, etc. Prior to that, I handcraft 50, and that'll probably do me. If I'm launching one rocket, that'll probably do me for the whole game. So yeah, but now they're in Roboports. Yeah, radars become more about discovering new areas than are about actual covering line of sight. So it comes back to an outpost. Does an outpost actually need a radar now?
Technically, if you put bots there, then no, because you're going to have enough Roboports to cover everything you need. I mean, I suppose it doesn't cover the actual mining drills unless you're bot mining. If you're bot mining, then you might still need a radar.
Yeah, and the only thing the radar is going to do is, the only advantage the radar is going to give you is that circuit network function.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to, if it's going to give me a circuit network function, maybe the radar, just hear me out, maybe the radar should have a circuit network function that goes interplanetary, and maybe the Roboport...
Some kind of interplanetary circuit network.
Yeah, because it's got a big dish on it, it does things, it goes long distance, whereas the Roboport, which is limited to the player surface only, maybe that should be the one carrying our universal signal across the map.
Even though it already spits out its own signal, and you could potentially spam its own circuit signals into
itself and have it. That's a wiring issue.
It's an implementation issue. It's not a big deal. That's fine.
Yeah. I just like radar makes more sense to move wire signals across planets, because that's something we haven't had covered yet.
And then we find out next week there's a dedicated
building for it.
Planetary circuit.
Yep. There will be. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else.
Hub.
Oh, actually, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because we're limited to one of those per planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you've said it out loud. Yeah, I agree.
I ruined it now.
Yeah. Okay, we don't need that Friday Facts anymore. Can we just skip to biters? Okay, biters is my prediction. What's your prediction?
There you go. See, I've proven it. The only thing we need to know about is biters now.
Yeah, okay, all right. So we're both in for biters.
Determined.
All right, well, that's it for this Friday Facts. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you back here for Friday Facts number 422. And it'll hopefully be about biters. Yep, that's it. We're out. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.